Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I am well and truly happy to have 2025 in the rearview mirror. It is raining here, washing the stench of quite possibly one of the worst years of my adult life off of us, and hopefully 2026 will bring something new and better and not just more of the same hellscape. I will see you on the other side. Well, hello and happy new year, and welcome to this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides. Sorry, that was a little bit of a depressing intro. We only have high hopes for 2026. Anyway, my name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter, an occasional designer, and every couple of weeks or so, more or so, I keep saying every couple of weeks, but it's just kind of whenever nowadays, I come to this little corner of the YouTube universe to let you know what I have been working on and also to share some ideas on how we can all take our love of making and do a little bit of good in the world. I hope you're well. I hope you had a wonderful winter holiday season and were able to spend some time being cozy with friends and family or whoever, or just by yourself. If it was cold where you are, I hope you were cozy. If it's warm where you are, I hope you got some relief from the heat. But I hope it was safe and healthy for everyone. A lot going on here. There's been a ton of knitting. I love. We don't really celebrate the holidays too much around here. We basically just have like a dinner with our family. Typically, we don't decorate. We really don't do gifts anymore. But I do love this period of time between kind of Christmas and New Year because everything, all the sort of normal routine kind of drops away and you just got a lot of time to kind of catch up on things. And so for me, that has meant some organizing, gearing up for something I'm going to talk about here in a minute, and then just a lot of knitting time. So I was finished a bunch of projects, cast on a bunch of projects, kind of got my mind set for the new year and what I want to be working on. So we're going to talk about all of that today, and I have lots to show and talk about. So that'll be fun. Hopefully, I can keep things moving quickly. But if not, I don't. In terms of what has been, first of all, a little rusty. You can find me on Bluesky as Gary Knits and over on Ravelry as Gary Knits and Rides. I'm also on Instagram, not really doing too much over there. Had thought it was going to be winding down, but because of this destash that I'll talk about in a minute, I've kind of maintained a presence there, and that'll probably continue for the time being, even though as I mentioned last time, I have all sorts of qualms of giving Mark Zuckerberg any more of my information and bandwidth. But for the time being, I'm over there as Gary Knits, Gary Rides. But it has been, as I said, quite busy, just with like a lot of doing and getting stuff around the holidays. We had a nice time. We had to split things up this year, and usually we do both sets of parents at our place for a nice big dinner of some sort. This year we had to split it up because my dad, as I think I mentioned last time, had a ankle surgery, and so he's immobile, and it just worked out better for us to do one dinner here with my in-laws and then head over to my mom and dad's place on Christmas Day for a little lunch. For the first time in forever, we did like more of a traditional Christmas dinner. Typically, we've kind of picked a cookbook or picked a regional cuisine from around the world and kind of dove into that. And so we've done like Indian and Mexican and Korean and whatnot. But this year, nieces were in town. So it was our nieces and my in-laws, and we did turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and made a couple desserts. So that went well. It was nice to have that for break. And I love having leftover turkey to make like turkey sandwiches and stuff. And then at my parents' house, my mom did not want traditional food, so we made New Mexico style enchiladas. So if my whole family's from New Mexico, and so we grew up eating New Mexican enchiladas, which are a little bit different than the typical rolled enchiladas that you find in most Tex-Mex places. These are stacked, and so they're done flat with. She did it with ground beef and a green chili sauce, not a red chili sauce, although we've done it both ways. And then you do a fried egg on top, or historically that's what we've always done. So that's what we did. We had enchiladas. I made some rice. I made a olive oil pumpkin cake, so that was delightful. But I would say the most fun I had over the holidays, except for all the knitting, was making my first ever panettone. So I'm sure you're familiar with panettone, but you see them in grocery stores more and more. It was not something I ever saw growing up here in the States, but it seems like kind of with the rollout of Italy and that panettones have become much more prevalent everywhere you go, but you usually find them in boxes or tins in the grocery store. But I wanted to make one on my own. They're notoriously challenging to make. I don't think it's much that big of a challenge as much as it just is a commitment of time, because it's basically, even though I think most people think of it as a cake, it's really a bread. It's leavened. It's a yeasted bread, enriched dough, and then you put dried fruits and raisins and all sorts of chocolate in it, whatever. But it has to rise twice and then bakes at low temperature for a long period of time, and then you have to hang it upside down so that it doesn't collapse on itself, and you let it completely cool so it keeps this. It's very nice and light and fluffy. But it went well. I had never made one before. My husband had made one a few years ago, but I just decided I wanted to make one, and I thought it turned out really great. I was able to use some old metal knitting needles to suspend it to hang upside down over a stock pot, and then we made some mascarpone cream to slather on it, and we had that for New Year's Day breakfast. So we still have some, and we're still enjoying it. A little bit of slice at a time, and there's only two of us, so it goes along. It lasts for quite a long time, but that was really fun. Again, I think that was probably the highlight of my holidays this year was attempting that and getting it to work. Knitting wise, in terms of stuff that's been going on, lots of holiday parties and stuff for around my different knitting groups. I started going to a new knitting group that I had seen online but didn't really know how to get in touch with them, and then figured out how to get in touch with them, and so finally went and met with them. It's an all male group here in the Los Angeles area called LA Fiber Dudes. So I've been to two of their meetings. They meet every week, which is awesome. It's a little bit of a hike for me. Luckily, they tend to meet on the edge of the greater Los Angeles area that is closer to me, but it's still farther than I typically have had to drive to my knitting groups. But it's just kind of cool to be in a group with all guys, and I think I'm by far the oldest one there. But they're still really sweet guys. And randomly, ran into at the second time I met the guy who taught me how to do brioche. He used to teach lessons at my local yarn store, and so I did. Did I do just beginning brioche? I may have done 2 brioche classes with him, but it was really fun to run into him again. And they're all very sweet, and they organize events all year long, including I think at least 1 or 2 like retreats where they'll do an Airbnb somewhere. Like I think they went to Ojai maybe, and Big Bear. I don't know where they've been, and do like a weekend long retreat, and different people kind of teach things and just kind of sit around. So hopefully I'll be able to do that, one of those this next year. But it was really fun to get in touch with them and to have that in the mix now. And then the other really fun thing that I did knitting wise was, I think I mentioned this last time, my friend Nancy, who was the former dyer of Trilogy Yarn, who is part of our Tuesday Zoom knitting group, and the link to that, along with everything I'm going to mention, is in the show notes down below. Here, let's see, do this way, is a QR code that will take you directly to the Google Doc that has all the links to everything I'm going to mention, but including a link to our Tuesday evening on the East Coast, kind of late afternoon on the West Coast knitting group. But Nancy participates in that. and she wanted to do a cast on party in between Christmas and New Year. So it was on Zoom, and she was on Zoom from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m., and people kind of came and went. And she was casting on a gazillion projects because she loves to have a ton of whips going at any given point in time. But I was able to hop on at two different points of time during the day. Did a lot of cast-ons, met a lot of new people, a couple of people who have joined us this last week on Tuesday knitting. So that was really cool to meet some new folks and to see what everyone's working on, and just, it's always great when you get a bunch of knitters together because you're always going to find either some new yarn dye you didn't know about, some new pattern, some new technique, something. So that was a really fun day. So thanks, Nancy, who also hosts along with a woman named Nettie, whose last name I don't know, but she's the owner of the Apple Wood Yarn Barn, Apple something Yarn Barn. It'll be linked down below, but they have a podcast called Knitting in the Northwest, and they're always doing a ton of fun things like make-alongs and craft nights at the store and things like that. And the two of them are prolific knitters, so it's always great to see what they're working on. So that was really fun day of cast on, a bunch of which I will show you now. I didn't go as hard as Nancy in terms of the number of things I was casting on. I cast on a few. I started swatching for a few, but then I ran out of needles. Like I needed like 4 sets of US 5 needles, and I only had like 2 that were not already attached to a product, so I couldn't start all the swatches that I wanted to do. But I was able to kind of organize things for the first half of this year, which I think was kind of the point of what she was doing. But I did cast on a bunch of stuff because I had finished a bunch of stuff as well. So that was really fun. And we'll walk through that here in a minute. And I think that's about it. New Year's Eve, nothing. I mean, we never do anything anyway. We have entered our senior citizen era, and so basically we had a nice dinner. We had black-eyed peas and cornbread, and then watched the series finale of Stranger Things, which was fun. And we were in bed relatively early. I'm gonna have a sip of my tea. I'm gonna try not to slurp into the mic. And yeah, and that's that. So we've been enjoying this kind of quiet time between Christmas and New Year's, and now that's all behind us because my husband went back to work. I've got Zoom meetings lined up, I think, all this week. So things are getting back to normal, but it was nice while it lasted. In terms of Craftivism, as I mentioned last time, I am going to try to do more of the Craftivism stuff in between episodes using YouTube Shorts. So there are a couple things that I posted up there this past week that just came across, because a lot of these things are time sensitive, and if I'm not filming every 2 weeks like I used to, things are going to fall through the cracks. And that's a quick, easy way. I don't have to do a lot of editing. I can just pop it up and get the information out to everyone. So, but one of them that I wanted to mention that I did post about, but is continuing, is Gnome Depot Fiber is doing a series of yarns, colorways inspired by the HBO series he did, Ravelry, which I mentioned in the short. If you haven't watched it, it's a sort of series of romance novels, gay romance novels that have been adapted for TV out of Canada, and there's a couple of different stories, but it's kind of taken the internet by storm, and it's really a lot of fun. The first couple of episodes, I will say, were a little lighter on plot and a little more heavy on the kind of sexy part of the story, and it is pretty sexy story. These sort of two guys that meet as young hockey players and sort of have this on again, off again thing. But I think once you get to the third episode, the plot kind of takes over a little bit more, and it's a little less sort of softcore porn. It's nothing super explicit, but it is pretty for TV. It's pretty sexy. But anyway, she has put together a series of yarn colors based on different characters and things in the story. And she's taking the proceeds from her pre-order of that, and it's going to be donated to an organization that supports LGBTQ plus youth and communities. So that's awesome. The colors look really fun. They're tied to the kind of uniform colors of the various hockey teams that are they're fictional hockey teams in the story. And then I think there's a couple of things that are referenced to some other things in the story. So go check that out. Gnome Depot Fiber. A link will be down below as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, which is not something that's currently actionable, but just someone you should be following, but two, something to keep your eye on. So Tian Kanaten, who's a designer and an author, I believe I think she has a book, has a book out as well. I may be wrong in that. I'll link to her Instagram down below. I think she has two of them. But she put out a thing today, just right after the new year, that she is sort of kind of manifesting that she would like to start in 2026 both a yarn subscription box featuring Black, POC, and other marginalized yarn dyers. And she would also like to start a yarn truck that she can take to, fiber festivals around, that also highlights and exclusively features yarn produced by Black, POC, and marginalized yarn dyers. She's, like I said, she's a designer. She's trying to promote these sort of underrepresented dyers and groups in the yarn industry. I thought that was a fantastic idea, and I guess stay tuned, because she was just sort of throwing it out there and saying who would be in support me in this. But if she is able to get that going, I think that would be fantastic. And so keep your eyes peeled, follow her, and you can track the progress and see what comes of this sort of manifestation of something she'd like to get going. So I thought that was cool. The other thing that is going on Craftivism-wise, I referenced it earlier, is my latest round of De-Stash for Good, which, if you're unfamiliar, is an online auction, kind of like an online garage sale for yarn and fiber and notions and bags and books and anything that you might have in your kind of knitting, crocheting, spinning collection that is getting underused by you and could maybe be used by someone else. The way it works is there is a link down below, also in all of my bios in Instagram and Bluesky, where you can list your yarn. I will run the auction for a couple of weeks, probably starting right at the beginning of February. And then you can keep up to 50% of the sales proceeds. The other 50% will be donated to the Community Engagement Fund of Center Ride Out, which is the new 3-day biking event supporting the work of the Los Angeles LGBT Center, I think is all it's called, not Q in there. As you know, if you've been watching for a while, for years I rode my bike from San Francisco to LA every year as part of AIDS Life Cycle. That event has run its course, and so the LGBT Center of Los Angeles and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation are each running their own smaller 3-day events. Center Ride Out is the one that's here in Southern California, going from Los Angeles to San Diego over 3 days this April. I don't think I'm going to be able to ride the ride, but the organizers reached out to me and said, would you help raise some money for this community engagement fund? It's going to be a much smaller ride this year, and they're hoping to get a bunch of new first-time riders. And as part of that, this is almost like a little scholarship fund that they run. So the riders each have to raise $2,500 to participate. That can be a real challenge if you've never done any kind of fundraising before. And so this fund exists to sort of, after they've raised a certain amount of money, to kind of help get them over the line so that more riders are able to participate. Having done my first ride 150 years ago, 1997, I think. I remember what it was like being the first time rider and not having ever raised any money, and kind of getting to the starting line that first day and this was back before the internet, so we were all had checks, and people were, okay, I've got a $25 check, can you take it? And like, oh, my friend has, needs $100. Does anyone have, two $50 checks that they can, give to them? And so this is a way to kind of help allow more people to access the ride. And once you've done that first one, you start to learn how to do a little bit more. So I said I would be happy to do it. I'd run these D-stashes before to support my AIDS life cycle fundraising, and I would do it one more time for the for this community engagement fund. So the goal is to raise $10,000 for the fund. I think that's going to be possible. I put out the word to a bunch of dyers who have been generously allowing me to buy some of their excess inventory at deep discounts that I can put into the to the auction to try to raise some money, in addition to what folks list on their own. So that is coming. You've got less than a week to get your stuff listed if you want to participate as a seller. And then if you'd like to participate as a buyer, just hold tight. It's a lot of work on my end to get it organized, but I'm going to shoot for the first week of February to get it launched. It'll run for 10, 12 days. So by mid-February, it should all be wrapped up, and we'll be able to get that money to the folks at Center Rideout. So excited about that. I've already started to receive some of the yarn from the dyers here. Gorgeous stuff. And I've also started to see some of y'all who are listing your yarn, and there's a lot of really great yarn already already slated for the list. I've seen a couple of like full advents which are in there, which is really cool. So I think it's gonna be a good mix, and I think it'll be a good auction. So stay tuned for that. Sorry, my throat is a little scratchy today. Last time I said we were going to give away something, and I failed to bring it in here to give it away. So I'm going to cut in something here from the future to show you what it is the prize is going to be, and to announce the winner. This is Editing Gary, and here is the information on the giveaway. So this episode's giveaway, the clue or the prompt was Advent from the last episode. The winner is Faye Lorenzo 4839. So Faye, I'm just going to call you Faye. I don't know if that's your real name or not, but please reach out to me at the email in the show notes or on Ravelry if you're on Ravelry, and let me know that you saw it and that we can exchange information and I can get your prize to you. The prize is, and apologize for the crinkles, it is a prize pack from Yarnaceous Fibers, which includes 2 skeins of her Pizzini fried artichokes colorway. So this was from my Stitch Out Loud yarn collection from a couple years ago, my last year doing the AIDS life cycle. And Maggie at Yarnaceous Fiber dyed up this colorway, inspired by the fried artichoke stand that we stop at, I think on day 2 in the Central Valley to get fried artichokes. But this is on her DK base. So all the yarn in the original Stitch Out Loud collection was done on a fingering base, and I think these were test runs or something that she did, but she had a couple on DK. She sent them to me. In addition, there is a little project bag and a needle sizer in the bag, so enjoy that. Faye, reach out to me and we will get this to you. As for this episode's giveaway, which you're helping me pick out some yarn for a project later in the episode. The prize is going to be this fabulous, beautiful bag made by my friend and viewer, Valerie Voigt in Bolivia. It's like one of these little bento bags where you kind of slip the handle through a loop. And then in addition, a skein from Teal Torch Knits. This is Bananas colorway, Bananas, and it is on her DK 7525 base. So there's a beautiful, bright, fun yellow in the bag. So follow the prompt later on in the episode, and thanks so much for watching. Talk to you later. So, congratulations to you for having won. We're going to do another contest this time until I give away everything that I have in my prize pack to give away. The prompt for this giveaway is going to be to give me some advice on a project that I'm going to talk about down the road. So stay tuned for that. If you have, it's just a multiple choice because I've already picked out some potential yarn for it and I just need some help finding it. So fast forward to the knitting section at the end of WIPS, and we'll talk about that project, and you can help me out there and just put your vote in the comments down below, and you'll be entered into this next drawing, which will be also for something else in my prize pack that I haven't picked out yet. So let's talk about yarn and knitting. As I said, it was a very active few weeks in terms of getting things done, getting new projects started, planning for the year ahead. Sorry, there goes the garbage truck outside. So I did finish a couple things. So let's talk about that. The first thing I finished, and I don't know that I've really shown this before. This is the Sola scarf by Ann Wenzel. It's just one of these. I love a little skinny scarf. This was done in scraps of Cascade. I think it's called Cascade Wave. It's their sort of like slow color changing yarn from Cascade that I had used in a blanket for one of the nieces when they graduated from high school, and I had a bit left over. It's a pretty straightforward broken rib pattern with start at one tip and you do some increases, as you can see there. I would say it's pretty straightforward, especially once you get to the one past the increases and you're just doing the pattern. I had taken it on vacation back in October and ended up not working on it very much because I was knee deep in the Stephen West MCAL, and so it just kind of languished. And it was going to be one of these like sit and watch TV projects, but then the Habitations Road took over just behind me, and so I just kind of never spent much time with it. Once I picked it back up, it took almost no time to finish. I followed the pattern exactly. I will say that as these tiny scarves go, this one is particularly tiny. It works okay this way, but if you tried to do more of a wrap around and pull through, it's barely, and I don't have a very big neck, it's barely making it through. So I had a little extra yarn. I wish I had thought about weighing it after I'd done the increases to find out exactly how much I needed towards the end and just used up as much as I possibly could. I would definitely make it again, but I would just go longer and continue the straight part a little bit longer than I did, just to give it a little more length. The only other thing I don't really love, and I did block it and I did pin it out, but the edges have a tendency to curl. So I wish, and I'll have to steam it again at some point, but I wish it would lie a little flatter. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty pattern, and a good one to have in the mix of if you're tired of making Sophies, which I still haven't made. This is just another one in that sort of genre. Stephen West has 2 ebooks of teeny tiny skinny scarves, and I gotta say, I know they kind of get a little bit of hate on the internet, but as someone who lives in a warmer climate, but occasionally, likes to have something around their neck, I think they're great. I think it's a great size for around here, and they're fast, and I think they look good as well. So that is the Sola scarf by Ann Wenzel. The other thing that I finished, or one of the other things I finished, were finally got through my Harriet socks. These are from pattern by Summer Lee in her sock project book. Cuff down, little pretty simple cable that goes down to where you start the heel flap, and then only half of that cable continues down the length of the foot. So heel flap and gusset. These are used a sock set from Woolenberry that was part of Rachel from Pearl and Polish's sock exchange last year. Somehow I missed the signups for this year, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay. I've got plenty of sock yarn to get me through the next 2 decades. But this was yarn that she gifted me. She was my partner in that sock swap, and yeah, it was really. I love this little tonal red. And I like the blue as the contrast. I have plenty left over from this pair, and already using the leftover in another project that you'll see here in a second. So Harriet sock by Summer Lee, great. It was actually my first. I think it's my first solid pair of socks, and I'd like to do more solid socks or tonal socks. Socks this year. I've got not tons. I've got a lot of striping socks. Oh, I guess I have that other speckled. I don't really have anything that's quite this solid, but I have the set from using the Porter Woolco yarn that we did as a knit along for a fundraiser a couple years ago, and that's cables as well, but speckled, not tonal like this. The other thing I finished was my Advent socks from my 2023 Always Be Kind holiday Advent. So I got the DK Advent from Laura that year, and just didn't start them, and held on to them for a couple years. And this year was the year of starting to try to work through some of the Advents I've collected over the years before I buy any new ones. So I had planned just to do a basic vanilla DK sock, but as I mentioned, I have a ton of just plain striped socks, and so I started looking for something, and I wanted to try to find something with a little texture, and I love this like ripple pattern. So I found a pattern called Dawn and Dusk by Debbie Ford. It's written for fingering weight, but I cast on the toes and then was able to get a gauge, figure out my gauge. And it just so happened that the smallest size in fingering was 56 stitches, which worked out to be what I needed to cast on for DK socks for me. So that worked out. So I was able to do the pattern without any alterations, just using that 56 stitch count. So this is the Dawn and I keep wanting to say Dusk to Dawn. Dawn and Dusk sock pattern using the Always Be Kind 2023 Advent. So a 24 stripe Advent. I was able to keep up. I like a sock Advent, unlike the other a regular Advent where I really stress out about not being able to knit 20 grams of something held single at least every single day. But this was great. I just did one stripe a day, and then once I hit the 24th stripe, or hit the end of the repeat, which was right here at the white, then I just kept going and finished the socks between Christmas and New Year. So I finished these on New Year's Eve and was able to have them to lounge around in on New Year's Day. I did, as you can see, one green, one red cuff, and then did the reverse on the toes, vice versa. And then I used one of the other minis. There were 4 minis in the set to do these an afterthought heel in this kind of oatmeal-y tan color there. So love it. Really fun pattern. It has yarn overs to create for the increases, to create the ripple. So it's not going to be the coziest sock to wear out in the snow, but for me around the house in my Birkenstocks, it was great. And I think they're really fun. So would love to try another kind of ripply textured sock pattern in the future, but that was a fun one. I finished 2 hats for Knit the Rainbow. I think I showed them last time. One was a warp speed hat, and the other one was a crochet hat called Twist and Shout. But those got all packed up, and I sent my package off to Knit the Rainbow for this year. Not as many as I've done in the past. I'd like to do more next year, but I think I got 12 or 13 items off to them. And I've already started, as you'll see, on my my stuff for 2026's delivery to Tinted the Rainbow. The other thing that I finished, started and finished, because it was super quick, and this was, I was doing it as one of my projects for the Yarniacs podcast, Self-Indulgent Knit Along. I've been talking about doing one of these for ages. I've knit them before, but it was as a gift, and it's just that time of year when I like to have a cup of tea, but I never had a tea cozy. So I found a pattern. It's called the Simplicity Tea Cozy by Claire Jackson. It's the reason I picked it was because it was done in bulky, and I knew it was going to be fast. I mean, this was maybe a 2-hour, 3-hour project. I started it one evening, finished it the next evening. I followed it to the pattern. I will say the pattern stitch counts were off in the first half, but easily sort of fixed. You just had to kind of add a stitch here or there. It's knit flat, kind of in two pieces, and then you join it, and then you sew it up. But really, really fast. This is in Chroma Bulky Twist, I think it is. It's a slow color changing yarn, but it's really hard to see the color changing there. It's perfectly serviceable. I think that the tea cozy I had made probably almost 10 years ago now for a friend of mine, and I'd used like alpaca, I think. I had a bunch of that really cheap alpaca that I talked about before from Smiley's in Queens. And my memory is, and I have no idea, because I don't think, I'll have to go back. I don't think it's in my Ravelry projects. It was before I started tracking things in Ravelry. And I don't know where the pattern is, but I feel like it had like baffles. I think it was more than just ribbed. I think it had like these baffles. And my friend said it was he's a big tea drinker, and he said it was, the most amazing tea cozy because it kept the tea in the pot like hot for like hours. This one is just a single layer. It's fine. I mean, this is a pretty small, pretty small. I think it's like four cups, 5 cups max. So it doesn't need to keep it all day. And it'll be fine for maybe this season, but I think next season, I'd like to try to find a tea cozy that it has a little more insulation to it so that it keeps it a little cozier for a longer period of time. And it may be one of those things that if I want to spend a little time kind of noodling around to come up with a design, that might be a fun project as well. I mean, they're not super engineering heavy in terms of coming up with it, but I do think that either a brioche maybe would be a fun thing, because that's has that air and traps the air and keeps things cozy. But I do have this memory of like almost like welts, like those welts that you do on the Stephen West projects, that was what was kind of built, and it had these like kind of baffles around the pot, which is what I think probably kept it super insulated. If you randomly know a tea cozy that has the baffles, I've done a little bit of searching on Ravelry, but I've been so busy actually knitting that I haven't done a ton of research. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd happy to check it out, or if you have a tea cozy that you love because it keeps your tea super hot for long periods of time, also let me know. But that is it in terms of the FOs. But as I mentioned, I was on Nancy's cast on party, and I think I cast on 4 or 5 projects that day. One was just like started a swatch, and I haven't even gone back to that as well. But I have several new things to talk about. So let me start with the Knit the Rainbow hat, because I think that I actually didn't start for Nancy's knit along. I'm trying to always have a charity project. I think I talked last time that I'm going to branch out from hats. I always do hats all the time, but it's something that I can sit and listen to an audiobook, or sit and do some language lesson, that's listening and repeating and that kind of thing, and knit on, that doesn't take a ton of brain power and isn't going to distract me from the listening. So This one is not that, as I realized. That Warp Speed hat from Stash Lounge, I think, is a great one because it's just round and round and round. This is the, oops, sitting on something. This is the Jupiter beanie from Benjamin Matthews. So Benjamin has a ton of beanie, and most of them I think are worsted weight beanie patterns in several ebooks. This one is a slip stitch pattern. It's kind of hard to see in the super dark gray here. This is in Brava worsted, I think, from Knit it was left over from some swatching I was doing on a blanket project, and it's really great looking, and it's gonna be a great hat, but it's a little too intricate because it's a 4-row repeat. Each row is different. Well, there's one repeat in there, but it's just one of those that I can't just like go round and round or get one sort of pattern in my head and go from there. But I got a few more repeats on this, and then we'll do the crown decreases, and then I'll move on to something that's a little more mindless. I mean, this is by no stretch a super difficult pattern, but when you're, trying to listen and repeat different phrases and think of them in a foreign language, or trying to listen to an audiobook, that's too much multitasking for me. So that's the first thing I started. I'll talk about things that before we get to the cast on party stuff that have been either in the works or started before that. I've mentioned a couple times I'm working on my first ever cardigan for myself. This, as I'm going to get to when I talk about 2026 sort of goals or intentions, this is hopefully going to be the year that I really knuckle down and focus on some garments, and this will be the first one that I finish. If I finish, I will finish, but it is just a basic set in sleeve cardigan. I'm using the formulas from Amy Herzog's Ultimate Sweater book, where she goes through different constructions and gives you basic patterns for each of those constructions. I think this is probably, at least unless something goes incredibly well and I just fly through all these other things, this is probably the only one I'm going to do from that book this year. I would like to go in and do a drop shoulder something at some point, do a raglan cardigan at some point. I did that raglan t-shirt last year, so I kind of have a good idea of that construction. So, but down the road I'll do some things. Anyway, basic set and sleeve cardigan for myself. Since it's for myself, it's going to be one of 3 colors. Guesses, prizes for anyone who can guess which color I am starting with. It is navy blue, and this is the first of the front panels. I finished the back. This is being done in a sport weight from Treehouse Knits called Dream a Little Dream. It was from her Stranger Things collection from a couple of years ago. Really pretty. It's it's very, very dark navy blue with a little bit of almost leaning towards black tonality and a little bit of like teal in there as well, I think. But it's very pretty, and so far so good. I've just gotten, as evidenced by, you can't see it here, but as evidenced by my twice sheared sheep row counter, I've just gotten to some armhole and neck shaping on the left front panel, and so I've had to take it slow. That's really, and this is getting into the kind of intentions part of it and why I want to just bite the bullet on garments. I always hesitate to do them because they stress me out a lot, and it's this exact moment in the process that stresses me out. Well, part of it is getting the fit right, but that it's the shaping part where you get to that part of the pattern where it's basically like, every third row that doesn't have a vowel in the number, decrease 1, but then at the same time hop on 1 foot and, increase every 7th row that, is a prime number, and it just messes with my brain. It stresses me out because at some point, in fact, just yesterday, I was doing it and I was like, what does every fourth row even mean? Like, I just get it. It gets so like in my head about it that I'm like, if I'm doing it on this row, does that count as row one, or is it? It's so. It just takes me some time to sort of sit down and focus and sort of lay out a plan, because it's like, once you start, it feels like once you start that shaping, it really seems hard to go back and undo it if you've messed it up. I know it really isn't, probably, but I'd rather just do it once and get it right. So I'm sure once I've been through it, I mean, that was certainly the case with the first sweater I made, that, kind of once I got through it, I was like, oh, this is not so hard. But you just look at the patterns, in this case, because she's written them for, different gauges and for different sizes. It's just these tables of numbers and these sort of instructions with 50 numbers that you have to pick the right one, and then it's this whole thing with, at the same time, do this and do this and do this, and I have to come up with a system for counting, to make sure that I'm counting all of the different things properly at the same time. So kudos to all of you professional garment knitters out there who just kind of pick these things up. Nancy, I'm specifically talking to you because you have like 18 sweaters going on at any given point in time, and one is enough to blow my mind. So I really do, give kudos to folks who have become proficient garment knitters, because it just, for me, has always seemed like this sort of insurmountable thing to sort of get my head around. So anyway, that is the basic set in sleeve cardigan from Amy Arshog in the Treehouse Knits. I'm going to love it when it's done, because I will wear the hell out of it. And just the other thing that I've sort of discovered is, this is definitely product knitting. The process, although there's all that counting and stuff like that, the process itself is not that fun. But it really is, I want the sweater, and I'm sure there are sweaters, whether they're cables or color work or wherever, where the process is more enjoyable. This plain sort of like stockinette, it's fine for TV when it's just straight, no shaping, but otherwise it's it's a little bit of a slog, I would say, but I'm gonna love it when it's done. And I'm sure that the next one will be easier, that it will become a little more natural, and I won't have to freak out about it as much as I do. I think that's it in terms of things that were started before I did the cast on party. So let's move on to things that that Nancy helped me to get started. We'll start with socks, because I've got three pair of socks going. The first are not for me. These are for my husband. When we were at Flock this year, there was a booth, Ocean, OSHEN Fibers. I think I've got their thing here. Yes. Ocean Fibers. I think they're out of Oregon. Astoria, Oregon, yes. And they had in their booth a colorway that was inspired by the 50th anniversary of the movie Jaws. If you've been here for a while, you know that my husband is obsessed with the movie Jaws. There's a couple movies that he's obsessed with that we have to watch, or he watches multiple times a year. That's as as Michael from Peace for Peace Crafting would say, that's not my ministry. I basically see a movie once and that's enough for me. Typically, I mean, there's some movies I've seen multiple times, but I'm not one of these people that need to like watch a movie or enjoy watching a movie over and over and over again. I'd rather watch something new. Anyway, he's obsessed with Jaws. We watch it multiple times a year. We've seen it at the Hollywood Bowl with the orchestra. We've seen all the documentaries about it. So when I saw this skein of yarn with inspired by the movie Jaws, I said, I got to get it for him. I will make him a pair of socks, even though he's perfectly capable of knitting his own. And so I started them. So I'm doing 2 at a time, cuff down, and yeah, this, I think they're going to be, it's a MCN base, and I think this is the first time I've knit socks. Most of the MCN, so that's merino, cashmere, nylon blend. Most of the MCN I've used is DK weight, and I've done it for hats and things like that, but I don't think I've ever done socks that is so cozy and soft. They're going to be fantastic. And I actually, I think the color is beautiful. It's much more olive, and it is in the skein as well. And I'm not sure that if you didn't know, that you would necessarily say, "Oh, that's that's the movie Jaws." If you do look at the original poster for Jaws, there actually is quite a bit of olive in it, and I think it has enough of this sort of like white and blue and red, to give you the vibe. It's not a sometimes you see these yarns that are based on various fictional properties, and then you're like, that is so and so, super clear. I think this is a little more the vibe and not a one for one. Otherwise, you'd probably see more gray and blue and red in there. But I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So I'd going to do a fish lips kiss heel, Patty Jo White, socks therapist, her short row heel. And I had gone through my scraps, and I found a mustard and I think it was like a tealy blue, and I was like, oh, those would be great. And I asked him which one he thought he'd like for heels, and he was like, oh no, it has to be like blood red. So I said, okay. And just so happened to be finishing up my Harriet socks, so I have the rest of the this Woolen Berry Fiber Co. colorway called my patience or my courage always rises, that I used for those Harriet socks, and so those are going to become the blood red heels for the Jaws the Jaws socks. So hopefully I will get these done. His birthday is in the spring. I think I'll get them done in the next couple weeks. So I said we don't really do Christmas presents. We have like a $20 limit that we put on ourselves. But someone had alerted me to the fact that World Market had these bottles of, I think it was actually a wine, but they had these bottles of like Jaws 50th anniversary like wine spritzer. It's blue. It's probably horrible, but it has a bottle that has, kind of, I don't know if it's decaled or painted or something on it. But behind the blue, this pale blue of this wine spritzer, there's the shark, just like the movie poster. And then up at the top where the liquid ends, is the woman from the movie poster swimming around. So I bought him that as just sort of a fun little thing, and I said, when we finish the socks next summer, when it's our time to watch Jaws, you can wear your socks. We can have some probably disgusting blue wine spritzes from the Jaws wine, and enjoy that tradition that way. So I thought that was fun. The other pair of socks I have started is from a sock tube. So I like to have sock tubes on standby for when I desperately want a new pair of socks. And because I knew that pair was going to take some time, I have the Harriet socks, but I want another new pair of socks. I have a goal. One of my intentions this year is around getting new socks for myself, because I've really discovered this year that I love wearing hand knit socks almost all the time. Like even during the summer, it doesn't bother me. The wool is insulating both ways. And so I have, there was a woman here, not locally, but like in Southern California, Totally Tubular Sock Tubes on Etsy. She's taking a break during December, but I'm hoping that she's going to come back in the spring, because I'm down to like 2 or 3 tubes, but I like to have them just so I can grab them and get socks done in very quick timing. So I have this this yarn from Opal. This is a collab that Opal did with KFS, which is a Japanese yarn brand. And they had a bunch of collab colorways. I think this one's called like Green Lollipop or something. But it's fun, festive, kind of almost holiday feeling to me. And I'm using a little undercover otter yak silk, I think yak silk merino nylon, or yak merino nylon, that was left over from my 2023 MCAL, the Geo Gradient. Was that 23? that I did all in greens, and so I have a bunch of that. So I'm going to do the heels, toes, and cuffs in that. So 2/3 of the way done with the first cuff. I've already split the tube in two, marked for my heel, and this is great. Take it in the car, sitting in the doctor's office, anytime that's sort of sitting around waiting, just to throw that in the car and be able to work on those. So hopefully, by the end of the month, I'll have another pair of easily socks that were easy to complete without a ton of time. The third pair of socks that I started on the cast on party the other day. I love self-striping sock yarn. I love trying to find ways to make it look. I love just having just the stripes, but I like patterns where it kind of plays with that and kind of create something cool or different. And I found this pattern called the Fruit Stripe Gum Socks by Lee Oakley Originals. And it uses what she calls a spiral rib to create these little diamonds out of the stripes. So it's some increases and decreases, and then you just get this sort of diamond motif through the leg, and then you don't. I'm not going to repeat it on the foot. I'll just go round and round in that on that. So it's kind of it's interesting construction. We'll see. In order to get the pattern to do this, you have to have a certain multiple of stitches, which is different than the normal size that I would knit my socks at. I started at my normal size, and then kind of you increase, and then I'll have to decrease back down. So I'm assuming that because you kind of got this, effectively this rib, that it's going to pull in, and it isn't going to just be droopy. But we'll see. I thought it was a fun experiment. If for some reason they don't fit, happy to send these off to Knit the Rainbow and have them find someone who fits them for them. So it's a little it's a little hard on the hands. At least I can't knit on it for super long so far because it is increases and decreases all the way around, and I found that versus just a stockinette sock, it's a little less smooth, and so and because it's such a small gauge, doing those decreases in particular is, it's a little tougher, but I think it's cute. And this is in Woolens and Nosh, one of her monthly club colorways called, I think this was Summer by the Lake Remix. I think Summer by the Lake was one of her, Michelle's monthly colors, and then the remix was something that either she changed some of the colors up or something, and it was in one of her kind of one-off sales that she did earlier this year, and so I was able to pick up a skein of that. But it's really pretty. I will do a Fish Lips Kiss heel, I think, for myself as well on that. This was the mini that went along with it, and so I will use that. I don't know. Maybe I'll try. I don't know that I've done a Fish Lips Kiss heel in a self-striping just to kind of see how that looks. So maybe I'll do that and just save this mini for some future use. We shall see. But I'm not going to rush. I'm not going to rush through those. Those are kind of the least prioritized pair of socks in the mix. So that's it for socks for the time being. The other thing that where is it? The other thing that I cast on. Two more things. One is a hat. This is the Harlow Worsted by Andrea Mowry. There's not much to show because I did just get it set up. It is a brioche, pretty basic brioche beanie, but here's where I am. Not much to show. But you can kind of see, there you go, kind of see the brioche. That's one side, and then that is the other. I was really playing around with, so this is a collab. The colorways are a collab that Spin Cycle did with Lola Bean. So the Lola Bean colorway is The City So Nice. They named it twice, so it's kind of this, I would say, kind of grayish neutral with specks of color. And then the Spin Cycle colorway is called Color So Nice. And it's this sort of greens and yellows and pinks color changing. So I thought it would be interesting to play around with, well, when you look at it that way, there is a little bit more contrast, but I think when you actually see the color changing, kind of a lower contrast brioche. Typically you do, like I've done, like a dark with a really light behind it, but I thought it would be kind of fun to play around with something that's a little lower contrast. I still think, just even based on these first few rows, it's going to be very cool looking. I think it's just going to be very very subtle, and we shall decide if I think at the end of the day that a hat with all these pinks is a color that a hat that I'm going to wear. I do have a sister who really likes pink, so maybe she would be interested in it if I decide it's not for me. And if not, I'm also perfectly content to have it go to as be one of my Knit the Rainbow hats if neither one of us think we're going to wear it. But I love having a brioche project on the needles. I just find brioche really fun and kind of rhythmic to work on, especially this, which is basically straight brioche, right up into the crown decreases. So I think it'll be really easy, fun social knitting project. I think round and round brioche is pretty easy to do in a social context, especially in the round, because you're not having to think about, oh, is this the purl side, or is this the brioche purl side, or is this the brioche knit side? You just kind of have to remember which one you're doing with each of the colors. 1 second, I'm going to find the project that is missing. Found it. And this is my other, I should have mentioned the Harlow hat is also part of the Yarniacs podcast, Self-Indulgent Knit Along, which is something they do every year, which is basically kind of whatever you want it to be, whatever you think is self-indulgent. For me, knitting brioche is self-indulgent because I love it so much, and I thought that those two yarns were also very self-indulgent because they've been kind of yarns I've been sitting on for a while to use in a project together. So the other one that I'm counting as self-indulgent because both of the yarn and it's just been sitting in my queue for so long. It's also perfect social knitting, which for me, being able to hang out with other knitters and chit and chat and knit is very self-indulgent. This is an asymmetrical shawl pattern called Pania of the Reef. The designer is Smine, so it's Smine with an accent, so Smine. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, but I've been wanting to. I've never really I've knit with Spin Cycle, which I guess is a gradient, but just like a real kind of gradient. So this is Knit Circus. It is called Thanks for All the Fish. This really pretty olive, kind of dark gray to olive to light gray to then to the blues. I'm pairing it up with another Knit Circus, very pale gray called Cottage by the Sea, gray blue. And it's just a very simple, as I said, asymmetrical triangle where you alternate some stockinette stripes with a textured stripe that they call a B stitch, but involves dipping down to the row below and pulling up loops. I guess this is really how it goes. But I started this the other day at the men's knitting group, and I think it's going to be pretty good for social knitting. It's also indulgent because it is DK weight. It's going to work up really quickly, and it'll be a nice new shawl to have once the spring comes because it'll be lightweight enough for that transition period, and the colors are going to go with most of the things that I would wear, which are grays and olives and blues. So that is Pania of the Reef by Smine. Yeah, let me know if you know. And that is it in terms of like the new stuff. Definitely the self-indulgent knit along stuff. I'm working on my Butterfly Field by Stephanie Lofton. I'm not going to show it. I showed it last time. That is my year-long, or at least the first 2/3 of the year, project using minis that we bought at Flock Fiber Fest this year, and I hope to have it done in time for Flock next year, even though I'm not sure if I'm going or not. And the other thing that I had swatched for and kind of done some planning on, but was waiting for my special order of yarn from my local yarn store to get going on, is the first of 2 blankets for high school graduates I have to get done this year. This is the Theo blanket. I've done 1 full color repeat of it. And I just wanted to get that done this week to show the mom. Actually, it's this way because we're doing a rectangle. So this is the Theo blanket by Tony Lipsy, TL Yarn Crafts. I'm doing it in 5 colors of Encore worsted tweed. And I've done some modifications because the graduate wanted it to be rectangular, and Tony has written the pattern as a square. And so what I did modified was her pattern starts with this square in the round, and then you make a square and work on 2 sides of the square. I calculated kind of a ratio that I was hoping to kind of get close to the ratio of a twin size bed. I don't know if I'm gonna make it quite that big, but and I made a rectangle using the linen stitch, which this pattern incorporates. Did it back and forth to create that rectangle shape, and then did the border around that, and then basically picked up the pattern from there and started working on the 2 sides as written in the pattern. And then I'm going to use the color changes that she recommends, and just keep going and going and going. It has gotten a thumbs up from the mother of the graduate and the older sister of the graduate, so I'm happy about that. And this is now going to become my sitting and watching television work because it's pretty straightforward. Crochet is never as straightforward for me as knitting. I do have to pay a little bit of attention, which is why you see stitch markers at all of the corners, because I can never quite figure out where the final stitches are. And so to try to keep things from getting too wobbly, I've marked all those. But once I kind of get past those 3 points, the stitch is pretty straightforward. And I mean, this is one couple days worth of some work. I'm hoping that this is going to go really quickly, which is the real plus to doing a crochet blanket versus a knit blanket, and that by spring break, I can get this in the mail to him, and he'll have it ready, or have it ready for graduation. The other one I'll talk about on a future episode, but I'm going to do another Tony Lipsy pattern for the other graduate, and it's going to be in chunky weight, so it's going to go even faster. That's the Molly waffle, if you are interested. So that's it in terms of whips. I do have one sad story, which is a whip that is going to go the reverse way. As you recall, I've been working on another Tony Lipsy project, a Tunisian crochet project, and I've probably waited, I should have made this call earlier, but here is my Loveland shawl, and I'm down to, a handful of rows of this lace section to finish up, and then there's a border, but I'm going to frog it. It's just, I love, the reason I'm frogging it and not just continuing and then giving it away or taking it to a thrift shop is because I love the yarn so much, but this has definitely been a process project. I've loved learning the Tunisian knit stitch. I've appreciated learning that when I do the Tunisian knit stitch, I probably need to go up a couple of hook sizes. I didn't do a gauge swatch, and maybe that's my fault. But even the gauge is not off that much. It's just I think the fiber or the fabric is just way too dense for. And this is DK weight, but I swear it feels much more like a worsted because it's so dense, and it's also quite heavy. And I just don't think I would ever get much use out of it. It's also the size, and I could probably block it somewhat, but it's just a bit of an awkward size in terms of it's just not quite going to be big enough, I think. And because it's so small, it's just going to be, I think, hot. But I love the yarn, which is Treehouse Knits Land of the Living from her Cocoa collection, MCN DK, which is lovely, and then a Magpie Fibers, also MCN, Adela is the Greatest. It's this olive color. I think they work great together. I think I would wear this color combo easily. So I just need to find another pattern that I can reuse this yarn in, because I love the yarn together. So I'm going to frog this out here in the next week or so, and I've had some suggestions from Nancy at Knitting in the Northwest, specifically to frog it back into skeins and then wash it and let it dry, so it kind of takes the loosens up the fibers again to doesn't have all those kinks in it if I want to use it. And we're starting to look for patterns. As I said, it's DK weight. It's 2 skeins of each color. So kind of interested in a 2-color shawl. The one that is sort of at the front of the pack right now is, I think it's called Field by Maxim Sear, Max the Knitter. I think it would look really good in these two. I mean, he typically has it shown, or most of the projects have it shown in, and I'll pop a picture of it up here. Have it in 2 solids, and so it's basically like a half and half. Each color is a half, and then in the other opposite color are stripes on the field of the opposite color. And even though I think it looks great as 2 solids, but I think that because I have a pretty decent idea now what this Land of the Living is going to look like knit up. I think that a field of this with some 2 or 3 row thick, I haven't checked the pattern, well, you can see it right there, with the olive stripes, I think that looks good, and I think that'll work well, and then it'll be nice to have the olive side with just little pops of color in it. So I'm gonna keep looking. If you have any DK weight shawls, 2 colors, 2 skeins of each color, I'd even add a third, possibly like a blue, because there's some blue specks in there. Let me know in the comments down below. But that is going to get frogged. I haven't frogged that many things in my knitting career. I tend to like push through and finish things up. But just the further I got with this, and I had the sense when I had finished the Tunisian knit stitch section, I was like, this is just really dense, and I kept like tugging on it, thinking like, is this going to block like for more drape? And I finally got to the mesh, and then I think I made a couple of mistakes in the mesh, and I was just like, you know what, this is just a sign. I should probably regroup and move on to something else. So that is that in terms of the whips and the FOs. I mentioned a project that I needed some help on, and we're already long, but that's okay. We're just going to go. And one of my knitting groups is doing a make-along all together. Someone in the group wanted to make the pressed flowers, and so we started talking about mosaic, and we kind of opened it up, and we're going to do a mosaic project. So we're all going to work on mosaic projects from February through some later date. I can't remember what we've decided. I said I didn't think, as pretty as I think the pressed flowers is, it's just nothing that I would ever wear, and so I started looking around, and I've settled on the Grid Gambit by Samantha Guerin. And I think that's the project I'm going to work on. I like that bandana cowl kind of style. I think it's a nice geometric print. I think I would wear it. And so I've come up with some possible color combinations. I need your help. This is how you're going to get entered into the contest. You don't have to select the one that I select. You just have to vote and let me know what you think. And we'll see if there's a clear winner. So I've picked 3 solids, and I'm going to use spin cycle color changing for the contrasting color. So let me see if I make sure I get the right pairings up here. Yep, I think that's it. Okay, so the first one is a surprise navy blue, or it's more of has a little bit more purple in it, but this is Underworld from Treehouse Knits, also part of the Cocoa collection, paired with this spin cycle, which is called Truth Bomb. I think high contrast. I think that would look great together. We know I like to wear navy. The other one, or one of the other ones, is a rusty orange. This is Pearl Soho Posy, so it's 75 It's an MCN, so 75, 15, 10. The colorway is Maplewood. So this kind of rusty orange with this spin cycle, which is flip it and reverse it. I mean, I think teal and orange are a classic combination. There's a little bit, you can see there's a little bit of kind of orangey colors in there. So I think that is a good combo. And then the last one, which may be the stranger of the ones. This is also Treehouse Knits Old Soul, also from Coco. And this is the Family Jewels from Spin Cycle. So you see that some of the pale blue in there, but then moves into some golds and some greens and some darker blues. So those are the three. Let me see, can I hold them all up here? Three choices. So there we go. Navy and yellow, light blue, blues and greens, or orange and teals. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. You get yourself entered into the giveaway this time. Let's talk about briefly kind of 2025 in review, 2026 outlook. I feel like I'm back in my old job where we did outlooks and reviews for things. I did 36 projects in 2025. My goal was 26, so I feel really good about that because I don't ever want to be static or moving backwards. I'm going to say 40 for this next year. The other sort of metric that I tracked is my stash. I am negative 279 skeins of yarn for 2025. Most of that is the destash that happened at the very beginning of the year, but there was just a lot less yarn in this year than there was yarn out from projects and the destash. For the destash coming up in a few weeks, I've already pulled what I'm going to pull out of my stash. There may be a few more things here and there, but taking into account the Loveland that is getting frogged and going back to the stash, a acquisition that I made for a t-shirt, the going into the starting out already so far in January, including the things that I've cast on. So the way that I typically count my stash is once I've cast on for a project, I take it out of stash. If, like for the Loveland, I rip out a project, it goes back into stash. But as long as it's cast on and still on the needles, it counts as out of stash. So I am negative 79 for January. So it's a good way to start the year. I feel like that's a good place to be. I did a lot of digging through yarn bins yesterday to clean out stuff for destash. Was able to take one of the biggest size bins and with some moving things around, get that out of one of the closets. So that made me feel good. Went through all my kits, things that have already been assigned a pattern, and just really thought about, am I really going to make that, or is that something I feel like I really want to make anymore? And cleared out some of that, so I feel good about that. So that's kind of where we are numbers wise. In terms of just bigger fiber crafty kind of goals, I would like to make 3 garments. I've got the sweater that I'm working on for myself. We'll talk about a couple of the other garments that are in the queue coming up. So 3 would be 2 more than I've ever made in a given year. So I think that'll be, I mean, I would really like to do 4, but I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm to be realistic about how much I can actually achieve. I would like to end up with 12 new pairs of socks for myself. So that's going to include socks from tubes as well as fully knit socks. I would like to say 8 of those 12 at least will be fully knit. And included in that, I would like to try some new sock construction techniques. So I have a couple of the Kat Bordy books, where she, starts at the heel or starts at the instep and has some, weird increases and stuff along the way. So I'd like to try some new, not just a pattern like a cable pattern or a slip stitch pattern or something like that, but some different construction techniques in that. I'm not going to put a number on how many, but even if I get one, I feel like that'll be a fun sort of technique building thing to do for this next year. I'd like to make 20 items for charity. Got one going that'll be finished hopefully in the next week or so, and this is going to be not just hats. I'm gonna try to make some cowls. I'm even looking at some mittens. So I'm trying to, for Knit the Rainbow specifically. Sorry, I'm pouring more tea here. You know, I don't know that socks are going to be, and I know that's one of the things that they get the most requests for. And maybe I'll look at, I found a couple patterns that are just kind of a tube sock that has a construction, a spiral construction that fits almost any foot. And maybe that's a great thing to send since, you know, you don't know the size of the kid's feet that you're going to be knitting for. But I want to do some cowls. I also want to, I was digging through yarn. I have a ton of cotton yarn, dishy and sugar and cream or whatever, because I did a bunch of dishcloths one year and I ended up with like a bunch of that cotton yarn. So I'd like to make some sacks for soap sacks to send to sacks. So that'll be included in that as well. So not just hats this year. And the only other technique thing that I think I want to work on is short row color work. So I have the Woolly Wormhead book on short row color work. I have a cowl pattern picked out using some yarn that someone gifted me, and so I think that I'd like to try that that technique out. Okay, well that was an inauspicious beginning to the year. I think it was just talking about short row color work and wanting to do that as a technique, and unbeknownst to me, somehow the phone had gotten unplugged and everything just went black. And so but I kept going. I thought, oh, something, you know, something's gone not wrong, but I'm just gonna keep talking and talk for another few minutes, and then thought I was done and realized that I had stopped recording. So what I was going to say was I would like to probably put out one pattern this year. I have a lot of notes that I took for my Knit Stars slip stitch color work pattern, did a lot of swatching and things like that. So I think it would be pretty easy lift. It's just, you know, it just takes away knitting time to write everything down. But I feel like I've done the bulk of the work, and it would be pretty easy to get another pattern out. So I'm going to hopefully try to do that this year as well. And then the last thing on kind of the crafty side is to get through a couple of my advents that have acquired over the past several years. I'm going to sneeze now. My goodness, this is not going well. And I think I have a Woolens and Nosh sock advent. And I think I'm going to do that as a birthday month advent. And then I'm going to take some hints from the gals over at Slip Slip Sis and how they do their advents, or at least some of their advents, which is holding a fingering weight advent double to get a DK weight, and then using crochet to be able to get through that and do a blanket in an advent period. So that maybe for next advent season is to take one of them is a DK weight, so maybe that's the best way to do that. Anyway, getting rid of another advent or two is my is the goal. On the non-fiber related front, on the reading side, I'd like to try to get through 12 books, which doesn't seem that ambitious, but I just never seem to get there. I've had a couple of really good months going of having one fiction book, one nonfiction book, always on the go. One is an audiobook, one is a physical book. So that has been going well. So I just like to keep that momentum going. Just finished up my my fiction book, which was called Clara and the Sun by the author who, and I could have looked at this when I was fixing stuff, but he wrote Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go, both which I've enjoyed, and I enjoyed this one as well. Nobel Prize winner, Japanese name, but he's a British author. Can't remember him. And I'm listening to Lawrence Fishburne read the autobiography of Malcolm X, which I'm also really enjoying. Probably a couple hours left, so that'll probably be done this week, and then I need to choose. And I'm swapping them, so if I read a fiction book physically, the next thing I'll do is an audiobook fiction. So also open to suggestions, although I've got several in my library to get to. I'm also going to start tracking that on Storygraph, so I will link to my Storygraph account down below as well if you want to follow along. I'm going to start taking Portuguese lessons. I've been studying Italian for many years, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy learning languages. We would like to take a trip to an extended vacation to Portugal sometime in the next few years. Don't think it's gonna happen this year. And so I thought that would be kind of a fun thing to start working on. And I need to find a tutor. I've been doing sort of an online thing, which is great because I can do it and knit at the same time. But I think we're ready to, in the next 3 months or so, I'll be finished with those lessons and ready to move on to a real person. So we'll see how that transpires. The Panettone has got me on a baking kick, and I've picked out one of our bread books from the cookbook library, and I'm going to go through Brilliant Breads by James Morton, something Morton. He was a British Bake Off guy. I'm just going to start at the beginning and bake my way through it. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully culminating in a Pandoro, which is not in his book, but since I've done the Panettone, I figure I should conquer the other major Italian holiday treat for next year. But I would like to not wait till the last minute to practice it. First, I got to get the Pandoro pan. So I'd like to do a Pandoro for next year and get back on my bike. I did not do any biking really to speak of this year. A buddy of mine that I used to work with in New York has moved to our area and has been asking me about riding. And so that seems like a good excuse to get back on the bike. And then maybe if I can get my conditioning back up, I'll be ready to do the center ride out next year. And feel pretty good about it. It's not getting easier every year to do these long rides. But that's it. I was going to talk about my queue a little bit about what's coming up specifically in 2026, but since this is already long and I've had so many snafus, I'm going to let that slide, and we'll talk about things that are in the queue to kind of help me hit these intentions. We'll talk about that next time. I hope you have a wonderful start to 2026. Thanks for taking some time to spend it with me. Don't forget to get your excess yarn listed in the D-Stash sale. And if you are a potential buyer for yarn, check out the D-Stash sale when it goes live, hopefully around February 1st. Make your comments down below to get entered to the contest by helping me pick out that color. And thanks again. Like, subscribe, and share with a friend. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.